And the whole family did. Nobody really knew how to deal with it all because it's the loss of 3 brothers. Every brother I've lost was in a moment when we were not getting on. And so I have to live with that.
Barry Gibb has sung countless songs that touch the world, but there's one song he can't touch because it cuts too deep. Imagine being the last brother standing in a family that defined an entire era of music. Imagine walking onto a stage, surrounded by thousands of cheering fans, yet hearing only one missing voice in your head. For Barry Gibb, that voice belonged to his younger brother Andy, and when Barry wrote a song for him after his death, it became more than music. It became a wound that never healed. The song is called "Wish You Were Here." Fans know it as a Bee Gees ballad, tucked into an album released in 1989. But for Barry, it is something far darker. Every note, every lyric, is a reminder of the brother he lost too soon. And here's the haunting truth. Decades later, Barry admits he still can't listen to it without breaking. Some even say he avoids performing it because the pain is too strong. But why does this song hold such power over him? And what really happened in those final days when Andy's light was suddenly gone? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't just the story of a song. It's the story of love, loss, and the secret grief of a man the world thought was unshakable. You're watching RetroWaves, the channel where the real stories of music legends finally come to light. If you love diving into the hidden truths behind the songs and the stars who shaped our lives, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss a moment. We bring you the stories no one else dares to tell, the heartbreak, the secrets, and the memories that still linger decades later. So, before we uncover the song that still haunts Barry Gibb, do us a favor, like this video, share it with someone who remembers the Bee Gees, and join our RetroWaves family, because here, the music never fades, but neither do the stories. The Bee Gees were supposed to be untouchable. Barry, Robin, Maurice, and for a time their youngest brother Andy, created music that outlived trends and defied critics. From Stayed Alive to How Deep Is Your Love,
how deep is your love, is your love, how deep is your love?
They gave the world joy, rhythm, but behind the glittering records and sold-out concerts was a family bound not just by harmony, but by fragile threads of love and sometimes tragedy. Andy Gibb wasn't part of the Bee Gees lineup, but he carried the same magic. In the late 1970s, he became a solo star almost overnight, with hits like "I Just Wanna Be Your Everything."
I just wanna be your everything.
Fans adored him, critics praised him, and Barry, as the eldest, took pride in seeing his little brother shine. Yet fame is rarely a gift. Andy struggled, first with the weight of expectations, then with personal battles. By the time the 1980s rolled in, whispers of financial problems, broken relationships, and health issues followed him everywhere. Still, Barry believed Andy would find his footing again. Family always came first. Then, in March 1988, everything changed. Andy, just 30 years old, died suddenly from heart failure, a result of years of strain and illness. The news shocked the world. For Barry, it was unthinkable. He had already carried the burden of fame, the battles with critics, and the survival of his band, but nothing prepared him for losing Andy. And out of that grief, Barry sat down with his brothers Robin and Maurice to write a song. It wasn't meant for the charts. It wasn't written for radio. It was a cry from the heart. That song was "Wish You Were Here." But here's the question that haunts Barry to this day. When he sings it, is he keeping Andy alive or tearing himself apart all over again? March 10, 1988. Andy Gibb was in Oxford, England when his heart gave out. He was only 30 years old. Doctors confirmed it wasn't drugs or alcohol that directly ended his life, it was myocarditis, an inflammation of the heart worsened by years of struggles with addiction and depression. For the Gibb family, the news hit like a lightning bolt. Robin later admitted he couldn't believe it. Maurice broke down publicly. But for Barry, who had always felt a sense of responsibility for Andy, the loss was crushing. He had promised himself he would help guide his younger brother, keep him safe in the storm of fame. Now there was no more time. Fans around the world mourned. Andy had been on the verge of a comeback, clean, working on new music, even planning a return to the stage. Some say he looked healthier in those final weeks. That made the shock even greater. But here's what most people didn't see. Behind the headlines and memorial tributes, Barry sat alone with a guitar, staring at the empty space his brother left behind. And in that silence, a melody began to form. The question is, was this melody a tribute or a private way of carrying guilt that would never leave him? Later that year, the Bee Gees began working on their next album, One. The world expected disco nostalgia or maybe a chart-friendly comeback, but Barry's mind was elsewhere. He brought the beginnings of a song to Robin and Maurice, one that came straight from the pain of losing Andy. That song became Wish You Were Here.
I lost everything in losing you.
It wasn't written in a studio filled with producers or executives. It was written in Miami near the ocean where Andy once spent carefree days. Barry poured every ounce of grief into it, the sleepless nights, the guilt of surviving, the desperate wish for one more conversation. When Robin and Maurice added their voices, the song became something bigger, a farewell from three brothers to the one who would never sing with them again. The lyrics were plain, almost childlike in their simplicity, but that was the point. It wasn't poetry, it was raw mourning. Some fans believe you can hear Barry's voice break in the recording, though that has never been officially confirmed. What is certain is that even Barry himself has said he cannot listen to it today without breaking down. And here's the haunting part. The song was placed near the end of the One album, almost like a hidden message, a quiet grave marker among brighter tracks. But why hide something so personal? Why not make it the centerpiece? When One was released in 1989, most critics focused on the Bee Gees' return after years of struggling with the disco backlash. The single One even became a top 10 hit in America.
Yes, someday, baby, you and I should be one.
To the public, it seemed like the brothers had moved forward, but hidden in the track list, Wish You Were Here was waiting. Fans who listened closely could feel it immediately. This wasn't just another love song. It was too heavy, too personal. The dedication in the album booklet confirmed it. One was for Andy. Every track, in some way, was shaped by his loss. But Wish You Were Here stood out because it spoke the words the brothers couldn't say out loud. For Barry, this song wasn't a performance, it was confession. He admitted later that writing it gave him no relief. In fact, it made the wound deeper. Instead of closure, it opened questions. Could he have saved Andy? Should he have done more? Friends close to the family said Barry carried an enormous weight of guilt. This has been widely reported, though the exact depth of that guilt is something only Barry knows. What's certain is that every time Barry heard the song, he didn't just hear Andy's absence. He heard his own failure to protect him. And so a strange paradox began. The song that was supposed to honor Andy became the one Barry couldn't bear to face. But the story doesn't end with the recording. The true heartbreak came later, when fans begged for live performances, and Barry had to make an impossible choice. The Bee Gees performed countless hits on tour in the 1990s and early 2000s. They gave fans the classics, Night Fever, Tragedy, How Deep Is Your Love,
How deep is your love? Is your love? How deep is your love?
but there was one song noticeably missing from almost every setlist, Wish You Were Here. Unlike To Love Somebody,
To love somebody, to love somebody.
or Massachusetts,
you. I'm going back to Massachusetts.
This was not a song the brothers could return to night after night. Barry has said in interviews that certain songs are just too painful. Though he didn't always name Wish You Were Here directly, fans and biographers have pointed out that it's one of the only major Bee Gees ballads never performed consistently live. And when it was performed, the emotion was overwhelming. Listeners recall Barry looking almost paralyzed, his voice trembling. This avoidance didn't go unnoticed. Fans speculated, was it because Andy's memory was too sharp? Or because the song reminded Barry of a time when the family's unity was already unraveling? These remain rumors, not confirmed fact. What is undeniable is that Wish You Were Here became a kind of private shrine. It existed on the record frozen in time, but it wasn't carried into the future. And maybe that was Barry's way of keeping Andy's memory intact. To sing it too often would risk turning grief into routine. But as the years went on, and more brothers were lost, the song's shadow only grew darker. For Barry, Andy's death was just the beginning of a darker chapter. In 2003, brother Maurice, always the peacemaker, always the one holding the band together, died suddenly at the age of 53 from complications of a twisted intestine. The Bee Gees foundation shattered overnight. Barry was devastated. In interviews, he described feeling like part of himself was ripped away. "I can't accept it," he once said. "I just have to go on. But I can't accept it." Then, less than a decade later, in 2012, Robin passed away after a long battle with cancer. Suddenly, Barry was the last living Gibb brother. From four voices blending into timeless harmony, only one voice was left. For fans, the Bee Gees' music had always been about survival and joy, but for Barry, it now carried ghosts. Songs that once celebrated life became reminders of loss. And Wish You Were Here, originally written for Andy, began to feel like it belonged to all of them, Andy, Maurice, and Robin. Barry himself admitted that the song haunted him more and more as the years passed.
And I was scared, I lost everything, and losing you.
Every lyric seemed to take on new meaning, as though it had been written not just for one brother, but for all three. But what happens when the song you wrote to cope with grief becomes too heavy to bear at all? When Barry finally returned to performing as a solo artist in the 2010s, fans noticed something striking. He often spoke of his brothers on stage, telling stories, even choking up before certain songs, but Wish You Were Here was rarely, if ever, played. In one interview, Barry admitted that he sometimes talks to his brothers when he's alone. He'll hear their voices, feel their presence, and imagine what they'd say about his performances. That's why singing certain songs is impossible, because it makes the silence too loud. Biographers and fans have speculated that Wish You Were Here became more than a song to him. It was like a sealed box, holding pain so raw that opening it would undo him. Again, this is speculation, not something Barry has confirmed. What is confirmed is that Barry himself has said he cannot listen to certain tracks because they bring him to tears, and Wish You Were Here is widely recognized as one of them. The result is haunting. For decades, the world sang along to Bee Gees' songs of love and hope. Yet Barry, the man who helped write them, could not bring himself to sing one of the most personal ones of all. But then something remarkable happened. Fans began to carry the song for him. Though Barry avoided performing Wish You Were Here, fans never let it fade. On fan forums, tribute pages, and social media, listeners shared stories of how the song helped them through their own grief. To many, it wasn't just a Bee Gees ballad. It was a universal anthem of loss. People played it at funerals, memorials, and even private moments of reflection. They connected Barry's grief with their own. Some fans even wrote letters to Barry, thanking him for giving them words they couldn't find themselves. For them, the song wasn't unbearable. That's the bittersweet twist. While Barry may never find peace in singing Wish You Were Here, millions of others have found peace in hearing it. The song lives on, not through Barry's voice on stage, but through the voices of those who carry it in their own lives. And for Barry, that knowledge must be both comforting and heartbreaking. Comforting because Andy is remembered. Heartbreaking because every reminder cuts deep. So the question becomes, will Barry ever reach a point where he can embrace the song again? Or is it destined to remain the one song he leaves untouched? In recent years, Barry has spoken more openly about his brothers. In a 2020 documentary, The Bee Gees' How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, he admitted that he would trade all the hits, all the fame, just to have his brothers back. That one statement revealed more than decades of silence ever could. For Barry, the music was never about money or recognition, it was about family. And when that family was gone, the songs became shadows. Wish You Were Here is the purest example of that. It wasn't written for charts or critics, it wasn't even written for fans. It was written by three grieving brothers for the one who never got to grow old. Today, when Barry does mention Andy, it's with tenderness and with visible pain. He rarely discusses the song directly, but the legacy is clear. Among Bee Gees fans, Wish You Were Here has become almost sacred. And maybe that's the greatest tragedy and gift all at once. A song too painful for its creator to bear, yet powerful enough to heal strangers around the world. But what happens when the man himself faces it again? When Barry finally confronts the song that has haunted him for more than 3 decades? The spotlight is bright, but Barry Gibb often looks like a man standing in the shadows. When he takes the stage today, there's no Robin on his left, no Maurice behind him, no Andy waiting to smile from the wings. The harmonies that once lifted entire arenas now exist only in memory. And yet the crowd still sings. They fill in the missing voices, unknowingly echoing the ghosts that surround Barry. But when the opening chords of Wish You Were Here are suggested, the answer is silence. Barry has admitted in interviews that being the last brother standing is a curse as much as a blessing. He carries the Bee Gees' legacy, but he also carries the grief alone. I hear their voices, he once confessed. I talk to them at night. They're still with me. Imagine standing in front of thousands, knowing that everyone sees your success, but no one feels the emptiness beside you. That is the weight Barry carries every time he sings. And that's why Wish You Were Here is more than just a song. It's the raw truth of a man who lost everything that mattered most. At its heart, the climax of Barry's story isn't about charts, awards, or even music. It's about one question he can't escape. What good is surviving when survival means standing alone? And that's the paradox. The song he wrote to honor Andy, the song that captured his grief better than any words ever could, is the very song that now locks him in silence. Fans ask, why doesn't Barry perform Wish You Were Here? And yet, in that silence, something powerful has happened. Wish You Were Here has escaped Barry's grief and taken on a life of its own. For fans, it has become one of the Bee Gees' most poignant songs, an anthem of remembrance for families who have lost someone. It's a soundtrack of comfort. Barry may never be able to sing it on stage again, but maybe that's not the point. Maybe his role was never to carry it forever, but to release it into the world so others could carry it for him. When you listen to the track today, you hear not just Andy's absence, but Barry's presence, his love, his sorrow, his unspoken words. It's the closest thing to hearing the bond between the brothers frozen in time. And in that way, Andy lives on. So do Maurice and Robin. Every time a fan presses play, every time someone whispers those words, Wish You Were Here, the Gibb brothers are together if only for a moment. Barry himself has said that music is eternal, even if people are not, and maybe that's the answer to the haunting. The song hurts him because it proves that love doesn't die with death. It lingers, sharp and unrelenting. But for the rest of us, that same lingering love is what makes the song beautiful. So what does Wish You Were Here really mean? It means that even when the world moves on, grief stays. It means that even the greatest legends are human, broken by the same losses we all face. And it means that sometimes the songs that haunt the artist are the very songs that heal the listener. Barry Gibb may never sing Wish You Were Here again, But maybe he doesn't have to, because the song already speaks louder than any performance ever could. It carries the love of four brothers, frozen in time. It carries the grief of one man who lost everything but his voice. And it carries the reminder that even legends are not untouchable. They're just human beings, wishing for one more day, one more laugh, one more song. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Barry will ever perform this song again? Or should Wish You Were Here remain untouched? A sacred memory between brothers? Let me know in the comments below. I read every one. And if you want more stories like this, where music history is told with all the love, pain, and truth behind the headlines, make sure to subscribe to RetroWaves, because here, we don't just celebrate the songs, we uncover the stories that still echo long after the music fades.